Earlier, we saw this slide. It's the only slide throughout the entire deck that's repeated, and it's repeated for a reason, because our start and end cap on this particular course is about leadership. It's about people like you, your peers, your bosses, people that report to you. And what we know and what we've emphasized is it's not enough that management commit themselves to quality and productivity. It's not enough that you commit yourself to quality and productivity. You must know what it is you must do, and such a responsibility cannot be delegated. So what does that mean? It means that we have the responsibility, and only we can take the responsibility to successfully organize and implement a change of this type, bring the Lean Agile principles to bear, implement the Lean Agile practices, and specifically show the leadership skills that our teams need us to show in order to be able to effect a change of this type. And that brings us back full circle too, to the House of Lean and our leadership on the lower left and our quote that people are already doing their best. The problems are with the system, and only management can change the system. We talked about exhibiting a Lean Agile mindset. We've talked a little bit, and we're going to talk more about leading the change. We've talked about how the fact that you need to know the way, and you need to emphasize lifelong learning and able to inspire others that this change is one of many changes, and you're on a journey. This is not a state transition from state A to state B, not agile, followed by a transition to the next best place after that. So we need to emphasize lifelong learning. Unlock the intrinsic motivation of knowledge workers. We mentioned it briefly, it's one of the principles. We didn't talk about how to do that. We're going to dwell on that here. Decentralized decision making. We had a pretty good exercise about that and have some good solid thinking about how to know when we could decentralize decisions and what decisions need to remain centralized. We introduced you briefly to the change model, but I'll repeat it here again because it was really, really quick. What are we going to do? We're going to train the Lean Agile change agents. How do you implement a new way of working if nobody knows what the new way of working is? This is the new way. We need people that know the way, and we can't be solely dependent on our partners and suppliers. We certainly can be dependent on them in many ways, but we can't be solely dependent on them for that because we have to understand the way. So we might want to have an organization of, a release train. We might want to have 3 or 5 or 8 people that are SPCs that truly know the way, and they in turn can train executives, managers, and leaders, the people that are going to be around the trains, the people in the PMO, the people in the architecture group, the people, financial fiduciaries, the people that are concerned about the way we're going to treat CapEx and OpEx in Agile development. Now we have really a capability we didn't have before. We have leaders and executives who are ready to go. We have good, skilled, educated SPCs and change agents, and now we can train the teams and launch the trains. And this is the fun work, it's also the hard work. This is the part where we launch Agile release trains, and that'll get the business results we need. So what is your role in that? How is that going to work? Well, we also touched briefly on Kotter just earlier in the class. We talked about some of the key challenges. Let's go specific here. What are the rules? Establish a sense of urgency. I can't help you with that, but you certainly understand the sentiment. Create a powerful guiding coalition. Well, we're going to talk about that. Develop vision and strategy. We haven't talked about the vision and strategy for change. That's a little outside this course, maybe in the introduction in a bit in terms of driving for the business benefits, etc. We were able to discuss that at least briefly. Communicating the vision. We talked about a different form of vision, and we certainly talked about how important it is to communicate. Remember the takeaway from this same slide earlier, which is communicate the vision 10 times over, that you tend to underestimate the power of communication by a factor of 10 or 100. Communicate 8 different times, 8 different ways. Empower employees for broad-based action. That's assumed now in our empowering model, and we have Agile teams and Agile programs that are already designed for that purpose, and that's a real benefit to this model. Generate short-term wins. We need to talk about that. Consolidate gains and produce more wins. We'll talk about that as well. And finally, anchor new approaches in the culture, because as I said, cultural change comes last, not first. So we don't start by pretending like we can change the culture before we've done anything useful. We start by executing the basics, executing the plan, implementing the change, getting results, and then anchoring those new approaches in the culture. How would we go about creating a powerful guiding coalition for this change? Not a random change for this one. Well, we talked about the fact that we develop SPC change agents, and these are our movers and shakers. These are the folks that are prepared to tilt against windmills, our big enterprise, and make a change. I see them in class every month. I'm impressed. I'm always energized and enthused by the energy they bring and also the maturity of thought they bring. They don't come to class thinking this is going to be easy. They don't come to class naively assuming the walls are going to fall down in front. They come to class with a lot of scars on them and a lot of hard bark about how difficult it is to make change, and yet they're still committed to that. And I couldn't be more proud of those folks. And they then can bring a broader view to the executive leadership. Now, executive leaders may be part of this. You may be one of those change agents, but you have a whole group of peers who are less directly involved who need to be leading the charge. So we want to educate them as well. So we do that with our training. We develop those lean agile leaders. And then those lean agile leaders in turn can sponsor and support the initiatives. So that's our powerful guiding coalition. People, the SBC change agents and the lean agile leaders themselves, and then we train the teams and launch trains. The first art is the most critical. You may not get another shot. So that first agile release train needs to be meaningful. People need to care about it, right? It has to be a solution that people care about. A burning platform is fine, because, goodness, these models work. Why wouldn't I address a burning platform or anything people care about? But we don't need a back office pilot. We're a decade beyond the need to prove that Agile works or Agile works at scale. We need to find a meaningful solution that somebody cares about, and we want to address that. In order to do that, we're going to have to make sure that leadership is on board, and that's why we train leaders with Leading Safe and develop those safe Agilists that understand the model. They and you are going to provide the coaching needed to assure success, because we're going to do a pretty quick launch, typically, of the Agile Release Train. Launching a train doesn't make the teams agile. It just means that you've created an environment where they could potentially be agile. We're going to focus on PI planning, execution, and inspect and adapt. How come? Because that's how we get results. We plan well, we execute, and we evolve. And if the first one doesn't go great, the first PI doesn't go great, we're going to do it again and again and again and again. And I will also tell you that first PI may or may not go great, but compared to what? Compared to the expectations we had before, or compared to the fact that we believed that we had some kind of magic pill here and just by applying SAFE we were going to get better results. Well, you will get better results, but not by magic, by absolute hard work and dedication and persistence. There's no easy way to this type of success. Count on the fact that the teams will deliver the results, because you're changing the environment. We'll talk a lot about that environment. You're changing the environments in which the teams are able to do that, and they'll step up to it every single time. Anchor new approaches in the culture. Culture eats strategy for breakfast, so beware. What do we need to think about? Culture is the habits of the organization. How easy is it to change a habit? It's not very easy. So consequently, when you realize that we're in the process of changing habits, we're going to have to go a ways to reinforce new habits and to show how the new habits improve our outcomes. But our new culture requires new habits. We have to come up with different ways of doing things, or the culture can't track. The culture will continue to support the old reward systems. Celebrate the art wins. It's, not prematurely and not with too big a bang, but if the Net Promoter Score goes up from, minus 13 to a positive 20, like it did at the Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology, it's one of the case studies, that's a pretty big deal. That ought to be worth at least a couple of beers and a slice of cake to talk about the fact that this thing is working better. That becomes a habit. I've seen program after program start to win. Winning is more fun. Here's my shortcut to culture. Winning is more fun than losing. Want a positive culture? Win more, okay? And this is not win-lose, this is win-win. This is when the team wins and their business owners win, and the business is able to take advantage of the new capability and win in the marketplace as well. There's no downside to this kind of winning. Consolidate gains, produce more wins, start another value stream. So do it again. Once you have a first art going, pick another value stream or pick the second art in that value stream and repeat that process. And in so doing, you've got a closed loop. Initiate the process, start building your first art, help that art become successful. That becomes a habit, and repeat, and you're on your way to anchoring these new approaches in the corporate culture. Well, your culture is interesting, and the current organization's habits are also kind of interesting. So why don't you take a few minutes, hit pause, and maybe just leave this on screen and write down 3 systemic impediments to adopting lean agile practices in your enterprise. These are going to stick in your face a little bit, and they're going to bug you. But there are going to be things that we can talk about. There are going to be things that we can think about inspecting, adapting against, and they're going to at least recognize some of the challenge ahead. So we don't go into this with rose-colored glasses. We recognize that there are significant challenges that we're going to be facing.